And let's come to more severe project, or the project which is built in more challenging environments, right? Because Russia is not all like beaches and sun and big city centers like Moscow, right? Russia is also famous for Siberia, which is very like cold and remote place. But anyway, this place is very rich in natural resources like oil and gas, right? So the next video will introduce the construction of a pipeline for delivering a gas from Siberia to China.
"3,000 kilometers long, running from gas fields in Russia's Siberia to the Chinese border, the Power of Siberia gas pipeline is one of the world's most ambitious energy projects, with vast ramifications for relations between Russia and China. The first ever gas pipeline connecting the world's largest energy exporter and its largest energy consumer, construction on the $55 billion project began in 2014, and 30 years of planned gas shipments, worth an estimated $400 billion, will begin in December 2019. Built, operated and fueled by Russia's state-owned Gazprom, the 1.4-meter wide steel pipeline is being built through swamps, forests, permafrost and seismically active areas, and across vast plains where the temperatures vary from above 30 degrees in summer and dip below -50 in the winter.
Но то, что касается проект сам по себе уникален. Уникален масштабами, уникален по тем местам, по которым проходит, там, где еще есть места, где человек не бывал. Сложности очень большие. Ну, земля такая, Якутия, она сама по себе сложна. Поэтому, наверное, и больше интерес тех, кто принимает участие в реализации этого проекта. И получит больше удовольствия. Будут гордиться тем, что принимали участие в строительстве такого проекта, и будут рассказывать своим детям, внукам.
Aside from the environmental complications involved in building in such extreme conditions, workers must stay alert for attacks from bears as they weld together as many as 50 12-meter-long pieces of pipe each day. After welding, the pipe is delicately lowered into a 4-meter deep trench and then covered with soil. At the end of 2017, Gazprom said the project was ahead of schedule. Here, around a third of the way down the Power of Siberia pipeline, the Siberian gas fields are 1,000 kilometers behind me, and the Chinese border 2,000 kilometers that way. While obviously a feat of engineering and technology, some analysts have questioned how much Gazprom will have to spend to fund the $55 billion project. Others question whether the Chinese buyers have got a better deal than the Russian company, knowing full well there was nobody else who would buy the gas. The gas pipeline will be Gazprom's first major export route east. Agreed between the country's two leaders, it is a major business shift that mirrors Russia's geopolitical turn towards China as relations with the US and Europe deteriorate. Russia's large network of Soviet-era pipelines that run west account for roughly 40% of Europe's gas needs and represent the vast majority of Gazprom's profits. Whether the Chinese pipeline becomes as significant is as yet unclear. Gazprom certainly hopes so, given the upfront investment it has had to sink into the pipeline. Much will depend on how gas prices move in the coming decades and how much China's energy demands increase. A Chinese team is currently tunneling away on a connecting pipeline that will link Power of Siberia with China's gas system. Gazprom hopes that by 2020, that will be in high demand. Henry Foy, Financial Times, at the Power of Siberia.
The main factor of like successful collaboration or working with your colleagues from different countries, of course, to know and understand their culture, right? So when I moved from Russia to China, I was reading a lot of books like how to work with Chinese, how to do business with Chinese, and all these kind of interesting and related materials. And here, in the last part of my presentation, briefly, maybe for 5 minutes, I'll introduce you a little bit how it feels like to work with the Russian and how they're different from like European or Asian colleagues, right? because historically, right, during the Soviet period of time, Russia was like cut off from the West for nearly like 80 years. That's why we have like many superstition about like bears on the street, Russian drinking vodka all the time, and all these kind of things. And I remember when I moved to Beijing, one of my friends, it was Jonathan from UK, he was from Scotland, and he told me like, oh Boris, is it true that like people in Russia drink vodka all the time? And I asked him like, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Scotland. And I told him, you know, in Russia we also think that like people in Scotland, they drink whiskey all the time. Is it true? so that's why a lot of like many cultural like misunderstanding and similar issues, right? But overall, Russia has a very highly educated workforce, right? With 88% of the population having a university degree, right? And half of them having a postgraduate education. And of course, every nationality is, or every culture is different in some way, right? So this like a positive aspects as Russian people see themselves, right? So they very patient, loyal, right? But at the time they're very flexible and mobile and well educated. But as any nation or as every culture, right, you have some positive and you also some negative, right? So for looking at the negative one, right? So you would like to say that they are struggling with discipline, right? Sometimes they're depressed, because if you have winter for 6 months, it's no wonder why you're depressed after that. And also, in terms of authority, right? Russian people, they're very authoritarian, because historically the country is so big, right? So many decisions have to be made locally, because I think maybe like 100 years ago, right? To travel through Russia by horse, right? It took up to like 3 months. So there is no way you can communicate and ask Moscow what to do and how to make decisions. So that's why it's one of the reasons why these characteristics were embedded into Russian culture. And also speaking about like leadership style, right? We also would say that in Russia still like top-down approach is prevailing, right? When the decisions are made at the top. And for working in Russia, because I have my French colleagues on Freycinet for Hong Kong, Macau, Zhuhai Bridge, Russian people are very respect of like technical expertise. That's why these French people, they actually told me that they really enjoy working in Russia, because Russian people treated them as an expert who bring like new technology, new knowledge to the country. But at the same time, like Russian people, they are very difficult to negotiate, because Russian people think that negotiations is like win-lose, and if you're trying to compromise, it's kind of like a sign of weakness. And this is also some of the characteristics, right? Because of the big country, right, and the powerful instinct for survival. So this one, collectivism, is also very resembles to China, for example, right? But at the same time, right, Russians, they are more like European, especially like Italian, right? They are very emotional. They say what they think, and they're not afraid of showing their emotions like openly, right? But another interesting thing about Russia, which, for example, makes it very different from China, right? Because historically, like the Russia, even now, right, it's a huge country. And Russian people used to fight many wars, you know. Okay, now we fight with Germans, okay, war with Germans are over, let's go to fight with Japanese because they already attacked, okay, fight with Japanese is over, let's go to fight with Turkish, and so on and so on. So that's why, like, surprisingly, right, in comparison to many, like, Asian or even European countries, we have a very big percentage of women in top management, because if all the men are always at wars, somewhere fighting, somebody still need to make a decision, right? So, for example, in comparison with other countries, right, even in the US, right, we have only 20% of women in the senior management, right? In Russia, it's close to half, right, 40%. So it's a special feature. So Russian women, they are very powerful, and it's very contradictory, right? from one point of view, it's very authoritarian, right, country, but on another side, you have 40% of women in senior management. This is another good video which kind of introduce Russian people and Russian culture in a very funny way. So I think it's a good way to maybe finish today's lecture.
This is Russia. It's beautiful, very beautiful, old but new, full of pride, cultural, multicultural, cross-cultural, big, very big, genuine, glamorous, time-conscious, and sometimes fast, with good appetite, natural, cool, hot, smart, rich, very rich, the champion, steady, ready for anything, creative and talented, curious, modest, but hungry, very hungry, promising, and very generous, very, very generous. So different and so new, no wonder you want to open it. But so different and so new, you will never know what's inside. You never know what attitude is behind business in Russia. Race, fun, fight, circus, good company, reward. You never know what way your negotiation goes in Russia. Formal, informal, relax, extreme, super extreme. You never know what is the best guarantee in Russia. A paper, two papers. A paper giving guarantee to the previous two. Money, big money, signature, plus a stamp. Good relationships, very good relationships, family relationships. Customs in Russia, you never know. You never know when, you never know where, you never know what, you never know who, you never know how much time and effort it takes. You never know how time goes in Russia. Sometimes time just stops. Time is not just money, it's big money. At the same time, time is nothing. Time depends on the mood. 5 minutes could turn to 5 hours. Deadline could be final and could be not. The work start doesn't mean that everybody starts. Deadline is the line you go along, not the one you cross. How much time is it now in Russia? You never know how Russians finally manage to do it on time. Stuff in Russia, you never know. Who does the work? Who is responsible? Who will stay loyal? What is a Russian capable of? You never know what skills you will get making business in Russia. To get dressed warmer, to look deeper, to drink more, to sleep less, to speak Russian without accent. So open Russia with the one who knows it best. Точка опоры. We are proud and happy these brands already did.
And all these features of the Russian people, they make them very successful in a startup culture, because startup companies, they're very kind of risky, unstable, right? And you need to work very long hours. So here I have got some examples, right, of Russian people who become very successful in starting and developing their own business, right? So of course, everyone knows Sergey Brin from Google, right? He's a founder of Google. Igor Solomennikov, right? He's a founder of WhatsApp, right? So everyone is using this app now. Max Levchin from PayPal, right? And even in company like Tesla, right? We have Andrei Krapivin, who is also a founder, and he's now working as a director of artificial intelligence. And at the end of my presentation, what I want to say, actually, in my opinion, the key to working successfully with people from different countries or with people from different cultures is actually to learn the language, because if you remove language barrier, or if you speak with the people in their native language, even if your language is really bad, but people still like appreciate the efforts you are doing to learn the language, to learn their culture, and they kind of start to be more open towards you and trying to find like a compromise. So for example, in my case, right, now I can speak 4 languages. So when I worked in Beijing, right, I learned Mandarin, Inwei, Zichin, Ngo, Hai, Paking, Zoye, Soi, Ngo, Xigong, Putonghua. And okay, if you work in Hong Kong, right, you learn to speak Cantonese, so, and it's actually helps a lot in negotiating or being successful. Because honestly speaking, if you, for example, go to the meeting, right, and or you have just negotiations with your colleague, right, if you do it through translator, so basically it's 1 hour meeting, but through translator it takes 2 hours to make a solution. Because you speak for 5 minutes, after the translator translate for 5 minutes, after that your colleague speak for 5 minutes, another 5 minutes for translation. But if you can speak directly, right, everything is at least 2 times faster, everything is gets kind of like momentum. So I think if I will go to work maybe somewhere else in the future, maybe like Malaysia or Vietnam or whatever place, I will also try to learn the language of this. Even some simple stuff like my French colleague from Freycinet, like where can I get some food, I'm so hungry. Even this kind of phrases can be very useful for like melting the ice and melting the barriers between people from different countries or different cultures. So I encourage you to do it, and if you have any questions, I will try my best to answer.